Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Today's video is going to have some spoilers from the 4th episode of the Ahsoka series. In general, if you guys haven't seen the Ahsoka series yet, I have to say each episode seems to be getting better and better. I truly enjoyed the last one a lot. The depth of understanding that Dave Filoni has for all the characters in the show is simply amazing, and he continues to build on our understanding of how the Star Wars galaxy and how elements like the Force works. It's a truly exciting time to be a Star Wars fan. While I enjoyed Andor because it was truly a wonderful piece of cinema, whether it was a Star Wars show or not, I likened it to a fine meal, which is perfectly prepared with the best of ingredients. The Ahsoka series has me excited and curious about the future of Star Wars in a way I really haven't been since The Force Awakens first came out in theaters. Whereas Andor dealt in very universal themes and character studies and just what it's like to be a human being, Ahsoka is perfectly crafted for Star Wars fans. And to be honest, I really don't know where the next 4 episodes are going to take us, and that has me really excited. So, in this episode, I want to talk about the end of that 4th episode of Ahsoka. Hopefully, if you don't want to see spoilers, you've left already. So basically, Ahsoka is dueling the powerful Baylan Skoll, and he manages to break her guard and forces her to fall off a cliff into a raging ocean below. I always imagine that Jedi, like cats, will always land on their feet, by using the Force. But Ahsoka simply vanishes and reappears in a realm known as the World Between Worlds. To newcomers and individuals who haven't seen Rebels, which is the prequel to the Ahsoka series, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Subscribe to this channel if you like. We're always covering really interesting aspects of Star Wars lore and other things. But more importantly, don't worry. There's no judgment for not understanding lore. As a matter of fact, it's a great opportunity to learn. So what is the World Between Worlds? Well, from what we can tell, it's a construct that exists on an extra-dimensional plane. The Star Wars galaxy has the physical realm, which is not all that different from the one we live in here. The physics work normally, and most of the life in the galaxy goes through their daily routines and paces in this physical realm. Then you have the hyperspace dimension, which requires a special device known as the hyperdrive to access. When one enters this dimension, ships can travel at faster than light speeds relative to the physical realm where everything exists. Without hyperspace travel, intergalactic governments and societies like the Republic could never exist. It would just simply take too long to go from one planetary system to another. Now, the Star Wars galaxy is broken down into different eras. Most of the stuff that we see in Star Wars from the Old Republic to the New exists within what I like to call the Republic era. It spans perhaps 25,000 years. But before the founding of the Republic, there were many other ancient civilizations and periods of time, like the Rakatan Infinite Empire that preceded the Republic era, which took over most of the known galaxy at one point. There was also a species of super beings known as the Celestials or Force Gods, and they're going to be very important to explaining what the World Between Worlds is. Now, we don't really know who exactly these Celestials were. They could have been created by some fantastical, Force creature or the Force itself, or perhaps they were just mortals that unlocked all of the secrets of the universe and became godlike because of that. But like most elder races with these types of superpowers, these Celestials in the modern period of time have gone into hiding. During the Clone Wars period, there are only 3 left: the Father, the Light Side aligned Daughter, and the Dark Side aligned Son. It's said that they were so powerful that they needed to go into hiding so that they didn't imbalance the Force in the physical realm. Now, during the Clone Wars, Ahsoka Tano, along with 2 other Jedi, are invited to the Celestials' home planet of Mortis, which also exists in another realm, like the World Between Worlds. It's speculated that these Celestials are directly related to the World Between Worlds, or perhaps even the architects. The first time the World Between Worlds was introduced to audiences in the Rebels series, a portal opened on a mural depicting these Force gods. The World Between Worlds is this infinite space, and inside of it there are a series of walkways that lead to various portals that open up to specific moments and places in time. I like to think of these moments as shatter points. Shatter points were a complex Force phenomenon in which an immense amount of Force powers were concentrated in one moment. Any actions that affected a shatter point had the ability to change the course of the future in very meaningful ways. Some Jedi like Mace Windu were actually able to sense and see these shatter points as they occurred and appeared. It's also said that people with great importance like Anakin Skywalker were a walking shatter point themselves. Ezra Bridger, the apprentice of Kanan Jarrus, is one of the first individuals we see entering the World Between Worlds. And while inside of this realm, he hears voices from all periods of galactic history.
Truly wonderful, the mind of a child.
What is this place?
Conduit through which the entire force of the universe flows.
Luminous, not this room. Thank you.
It's not a coincidence that many of these voices came from Force-sensitive individuals, as everything here, including the world between worlds, is heavily related to the living and cosmic Force. And so to really understand the world in between worlds, you have to understand how the Force works, and this is really explained well by the Force spirit of Qui-Gon Jinn to Yoda on his first trip to Dagobah.
How are you here?
I am a manifestation of the Force. A force that consists of two parts. Living beings generate the living force, which in turn powers the wellspring that is the cosmic force.
So the living force is this energy field that basically encompasses all life. Force sensitives have a heightened ability to connect to this force through the midichlorians in their bodies, and they're even able to manipulate it. Now, the cosmic force, from my understanding, is far more than just a wellspring of the living force. It's almost this consciousness, which defies definition in some ways. And I believe it is sentient in a very abstract way. It does select messengers and guides to help do its bidding, usually Force sensitives like Qui-Gon Jinn and later on Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's not as if the cosmic force sits them down and talks to them and tells them what it wants, but the actions these individuals took during their lives made them worthy enough to become one with the Force, and this seems to be enough to grant them the privilege to become basically a messenger or a guide for the cosmic Force. What is interesting is when a living person becomes a Force spirit, their understanding of how the universe works shifts drastically as they are given much more information about how things are actually run.
See the future. You can.
I exist where there is no future or past.
Know you who the Sith Lord is.
I can only show you a place where the answers will be revealed to you.
Qui-Gon Jinn seems mysterious and aloof in how he's answering Yoda's questions, but again, this is just his larger worldview of the universe. He simply understands things that Yoda has not been clued in on yet. Yoda is asking him questions that concern mortals in this specific time, and Qui-Gon is in a realm where the concept of time and space does not really exist. He has a very different perception of the universe. Which brings me back to this idea of the world between worlds. Now, there are a lot of Star Wars fans, especially purists, who are afraid that this will allow time travel, and it could potentially change past stories and alter things in a way where, Disney can basically do whatever they want. But again, I think we're also mistaking what the world between worlds is. And I think Dave Filoni is the best person to explain to us what this is. He's the creator of Rebels and Ahsoka and World Between Worlds.
World Between Worlds, then, it's not about time travel. It's really not about time travel at all. It's just about a place where everything comes together and you hear different things echoing throughout time.
This is our most desperate hour.
Because it's all fluid in that moment, in that place.
And so we have to view the world between worlds as more as a library. It's a viewing station of sort from where you can see every shatter point in history. And it actually makes a lot of sense that the Celestials would build something like this, if they actually did build this. What we know about the Celestials is that they reached a point where mere mortal desires of the flesh no longer really satisfied them. They had access to forgotten Force technologies. They were able to build a gigantic barrier around the galaxy. They were able to move planets, build planetary systems. They could even move suns and black holes. The difference between a Celestial's understanding of the universe versus a mortal is like the difference between a human being and an ant. And so I think it's very possible that the Celestials built this realm in order to better understand how they can preserve and balance peace, which seems to be their primary objective. But of course, this is just speculation. The Force gods were not immune to many of the flaws that humans had. They weren't perfect. So how does one access the world between worlds? Well, it seems like Ezra Bridger was guided there by his deceased master, who became one with the Force. Kanan Jarrus would send a giant white Lothwolf known as Doom to bring Ezra to the world between worlds. It should be noted that the Lothwolves, like the Purrgil, have the ability to hyperspace tunnel, which leads me to believe that hyperspace is also somehow really connected closely to the Force. Anyway, these Lothwolves bring Ezra Bridger to the Jedi Temple on Lothal, and while he's there, he finds the doorway to the world between worlds. And when Ezra enters, you can see countless shatter points like constellations in the far distance. What is interesting is the shatter points that Ezra Bridger's walkway connects to are only really ones that concern him or connected to people he actually knows.
And Ezra is more in tune with the things that are directly related to him, like when he was on Malachor and saw Ahsoka, like when he saw Kanan die. These things reverberate to him and he understands them more. The other voices he doesn't even understand. He doesn't know those people. They're just like the wind moving, and he recognizes some like Obi-Wan and Yoda, but he doesn't understand the context of anything that's going on.
Although Filoni denies that the world between worlds is about time travel, it's clear that Ezra Bridger alters the course of Ahsoka Tano's life from inside the world between worlds. He witnesses Darth Vader dueling Ahsoka Tano, and had he not pulled Ahsoka out of that portal, it's very likely that Vader would have cut her down. Although you could also say that this was Ezra's destiny all along. This was meant to happen. He was meant to come here. Clearly, he was guided by Force-sensitive creatures and Force spirits. So the rules for this realm and for the Force in general are a bit muddy, but we do know that when a person enters the world in between worlds, they have to exit the same way they came. Ahsoka would return to Malachor, to where she was dueling Vader. Ezra would eventually return to Lothal, which is where he entered. And I'm sure Ahsoka in this TV series will also have to return back to Cetos and have to find another way to get to Thrawn, perhaps using those damn space whales. But while Ezra Bridger was inside the world between worlds, he witnesses Kanan Jarrus' death, and he actually thinks about saving Kanan. Luckily, Ahsoka is there to tell him not to do this. She understands that this is unwise. You see, Kanan had sacrificed his own life in order to save Ezra's life. And so by removing Kanan from the situation, Ezra would actually end up killing his former past self.
And so everything will break, and will cause chaos, and will cause destruction.
Now, Filoni is not saying that this is impossible. He's simply saying that this will create chaos, and that it's a bad thing, I guess. It's basically the grandfather paradox that has plagued every time travel film or any story that deals with time in a non-linear fashion. But my question is, what if someone wants chaos? What if a Sith Lord wants chaos? Darth Sidious's master, Darth Plagueis in Legends, created life from the Force itself, and it was seen as an abomination. And what happens is the cosmic and living Force actually attack Darth Plagueis back. Now this shows us the Sith, through sheer determination and manipulation of how the Force works, are able to achieve the impossible. And in this episode, where Ezra travels to the world between worlds, Darth Sidious appears in one of these portals using his Sith alchemy, and he desires access to the world between worlds. Most likely so that he can do exactly what Dave Filoni says no one should do, and that is change the past or the future.
Show me the way, Ezra. Help me.
And it seems like it's not impossible. You know, Palpatine is actually able to send his dark side energy into the world between worlds to attack Ezra and Ahsoka, but whether he can actually get inside is unknown. Now, Palpatine is a Sith, and the Sith try to bend the Force to their will, whereas the Jedi just kind of go along with the rhythm and become one with the Force. Perhaps this is what is keeping Sidious from entering this realm. He's just not worthy. He's not using the Force correctly. And I can see this desire to access this dimension as being one of the major conflicts in the upcoming Star Wars films and TV shows. If Palpatine is actually able to enter this world, he could cause tremendous damage for the entire galaxy. This is a cause worth fighting against. And as far as Anakin appearing in the world in between worlds in that last scene, I think it's very likely that this is just a Force ghost of Anakin. Yes, I understand it looks like he has Vader's lightsaber, although even that is unclear. I kind of zoomed it in and lightened it up. But I actually don't think that detail is important at all. What is important is what Ghost Anakin is going to say to Ahsoka and what Ghost Anakin requires of Ahsoka. Because remember, Force spirits are basically messengers for the living and cosmic Force. What's even more interesting is, why has Ahsoka been saved again from this certain death? Who is the guiding hand that continues saving her, and what does that Force want with her? You know, up until episode 4 of Ahsoka, I thought I knew exactly where the show was going. My biggest criticism about Dave Filoni is that he's kind of predictable. He doesn't really step outside of the box. He's almost too respectful of his mentor, George Lucas, and that prevents him from really creating his own footprint on the story. But now I'm starting to realize that Dave Filoni has had a massive plan from the very beginning, when he first started working on the Clone Wars. And as the series progressed, we see more and more callbacks to these older shows. And so I am very excited to see what is going to happen in the future of this show. I'm looking forward to seeing the next episode. And I hope you guys will be joining us again on this channel. Please do hit that subscribe and notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And as usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy,